Life is a journey of faith, where we navigate the delicate balance between hope and despair, light and shadow. Each day brings its own set of challenges, and in those moments of uncertainty, a profound question often lingers in our hearts: if God is in control, why do bad things happen? This inquiry resonates deeply within every soul longing for meaning in their suffering. It compels us to confront the reality of pain and the seeming silence of God in our trials. C.S. Lewis, a keen observer of the human experience, eloquently articulated that our struggles are not signs of divine abandonment, rather, they serve as the crucibles in which our faith is tested and refined. Just as precious metals are purified through fire, our spirits are shaped and strengthened through adversity. These trials, though painful, are instrumental in forging a deeper connection with the divine, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, we are never alone. Instead of being mere obstacles, our hardships can be transformed into stepping stones, leading us toward a richer understanding of God's love and purpose for our lives. It is through this lens of faith that we can begin to perceive the beauty woven within our suffering. Often, we are tempted to believe that our hardships are evidence that God has abandoned us. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Scripture tells us in James 1 verses 2-3 to consider it pure joy. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. This passage reveals a profound truth: our trials are not random acts of suffering, but intentional opportunities for growth. C.S. Lewis, in his writings, often spoke about the refining nature of suffering. He compared life to a block of stone, and God to a sculptor who is carefully chiseling away at our rough edges. The pain we feel is the pressure of God's hand as He shapes us into the masterpiece He intends for us to be. In his book, The Problem of Pain, Lewis emphasizes that pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Think of the trials in your life as the fire that forges steel, the heat that purifies gold. Without these moments of adversity, our faith would remain untested, fragile, and incomplete. It is in the fire of suffering that we learn to depend on God entirely, that we experience His strength in our weakness, and that we come to understand the depth of His love for us. Trust is the cornerstone of our relationship with God, yet it is often the hardest thing to hold on to when the storms of life rage around us. We ask, "Why me?" or "How long, O Lord?" Yet, the call to trust is clear. Proverbs 3 verses 5-6 reminds us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Lewis himself struggled with doubt and loss, particularly after the death of his beloved wife, Joy. In A Grief Observed, he captures the raw emotion of a heart grappling with God's plan. His reflections offer us insight into the human condition, where trust is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to hold on to faith even when the answers seem far away. We might not always understand why God allows certain things to happen, but trust is not dependent on understanding. Trust is about believing that God's plan, though often hidden from us, is perfect. As Isaiah 55 verses 8-9 tells us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts." It is essential to remember that trust requires surrender, releasing the need to control the outcome, and embracing the peace that comes from knowing God holds our future in His hands. This act of surrender transforms our hearts, giving us the ability to navigate uncertainty with a calm assurance. Faith is the antidote to fear, the remedy for worry, and the fuel that powers us through life's darkest moments. But what does faith look like in practice, especially when everything around us seems to be falling apart? Hebrews 11 verse 1 provides a powerful definition. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This assurance is not grounded in our circumstances, but in the unwavering character of God. C.S. Lewis wrote extensively about faith, not as blind optimism, but as a reasoned trust in the promises of God. He acknowledged that faith is often hardest when it is most necessary. In Mere Christianity, he states, faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods. This wisdom calls us to hold steady when our emotions and fears tempt us to let go of hope. Faith is a powerful lens through which we can perceive the world, allowing us to see beyond our immediate circumstances. It invites us to recognize that while trials may seem overwhelming and insurmountable, they are, in fact, temporary moments on the vast canvas of eternity. God's love, in contrast, is unwavering and everlasting, a steadfast anchor amidst the turbulence of life. This enduring love reassures us that our struggles are not the end of our story, but rather a part of a divine narrative unfolding for our good. Consider the Israelites, who wandered through the desert for 40 long years, facing hardships that tested their faith and resilience. Their journey was fraught with uncertainty, hunger, and despair, yet it was also filled with moments of divine intervention and guidance. They trusted that God was leading them toward the promised land, a place of abundance and blessing. In their desert seasons, they learned to rely on God's provision, recognizing that every trial was a stepping stone toward fulfillment of His promises. Similarly, we find ourselves navigating our own deserts, grappling with challenges that may feel isolating and daunting. Yet, it is within these very experiences that our faith is deepened and our character is molded. Like the Israelites, we are called to trust in God's perfect timing and unfailing presence, believing that He is guiding us through our seasons of struggle toward His greater purpose for our lives. Embracing this perspective enables us to cultivate patience and resilience, knowing that God is with us every step of the way, illuminating our path with His love and light. One of the most comforting truths in Scripture is that God does not expect us to navigate trials in our own strength. In fact, He often allows us to reach the end of our own abilities so that we can experience His strength. As 2 Corinthians 12 verses 9 to 10 reveals, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Therefore, Paul declares, "When I am weak, then I am strong." This paradox of strength in weakness is a theme that runs throughout Lewis's works. He often remarked that it is in our vulnerability that we are most open to receiving God's grace. In moments of brokenness, we are reminded of our dependency on God. And it is here that we find true strength. Imagine a sailor caught in a storm, his ship battered by waves. No amount of strength will quiet the sea, but the sailor's hope lies in the anchor that holds him steady. Similarly, in the storms of life, we are not called to still the waves but to hold fast to the anchor of our faith. And it is in this anchoring that we discover a strength not our own, God's strength carrying us when we cannot carry ourselves. God never wastes our pain. Every trial, every heartache, and every loss is an opportunity for Him to reveal His glory through our lives. Romans 8 verse 28 assures us that, in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. This doesn't mean that every circumstance is good, but that God has the power to bring good out of even the darkest moments. C.S. Lewis often explored the idea of redemptive suffering, the belief that our pain has purpose when placed in God's hands. He wrote, "God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons that we could learn in no other way." This perspective encourages us to look for the lessons in our pain and to trust that God is weaving our experiences into a greater story. Consider the story of Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely imprisoned, and forgotten by those he helped. Yet, through every trial, God was at work, preparing Joseph for a position of leadership that would ultimately save his family and an entire nation. Like Joseph, we may not see the full picture of what God is doing, but we can trust that He is working for our good and His glory. as we conclude this exploration of faith amid suffering, we are reminded that our journeys are not defined by the hardships we face, but by the strength and resilience we cultivate through them. Life indeed presents us with trials that test our faith and challenge our understanding, but these very trials can also become the refining fires that shape us into the individuals God intends us to be. Each moment of doubt or despair can serve as a stepping stone toward a deeper connection with the divine. Urging us to hold on to hope and trust in His unwavering love, just as C.S. Lewis found meaning in his own pain, we too are called to seek purpose in our struggles. By embracing our trials, we learn to lean on God's strength, allowing our faith to grow and flourish. Remember, even when the path seems unclear, God is at work, weaving a beautiful tapestry of grace and redemption in our lives. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the relationship between faith and suffering? Have you experienced moments where your trials led to a deeper understanding of God's love? Share your reflections and personal stories in the comments below. Your insights could inspire someone else navigating their own journey of faith. Let's encourage one another as we walk this path together.